All right, Dr. Baxter, and then you have 15 minutes, and then I think it's after that we will have a short Q&A discussion session. Okay, it's all yours.
Thank you for the invitation. My name is Philip Baxter. I'm an assistant professor with James Madison University in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And this research looks at the kind of nuclear related networks within North Korea and looks at both the international collaborations as well as the domestic collaborations, kind of visualizing and mapping out the ecosystem and organizations that exist to support the tacit knowledge or the kind of the hard to gain knowledge related to the nuclear fuel cycle. So that includes information such as computer science or concrete engineering, not just kind of nuclear physics, but all of the things that would support a nuclear industry. And so this was done in collaboration with several authors here on my slides and with the support of the Korea Foundation. So in this presentation, I'm going to look at kind of what are these ecosystems, how are they organized? What are the kind of differences between international and domestic? How do they kind of organize themselves? How do they function? What are some of the key characteristics around the North Korean nuclear sector, especially as it relates to nuclear weapons? So as you could see on this next slide, hopefully, there we are. This is kind of the key motivating question my colleagues and I undertook, was looking at how has North Korea attempted to acquire intangible technology, right? So not just, seeking out centrifuges or equipment, but how has it learned the science around nuclear weapons, around the physics needed for nuclear weapons, the material science needed for conducting enrichment or plutonium extraction? How has it kind of looked at that? And what we found were kind of focusing in on the international side on collaboration was that the strategy for acquiring intangible technology, so acquiring tacit knowledge, experience, is very similar to how North Korea has acquired its actual hard technology, right? They've focused on collaborations that vary in geographic scope. They're able to obfuscate their intentions when engaging internationally. They generally look to kind of develop an international or a core group of individuals that work within North Korea and then send out individuals to work in other geographic locations to acquire and then come back and assimilate technology. So the way we did this from a network science perspective is that we collected all of the publications, which are demonstrations of tacit knowledge, that relate to the nuclear fuel cycle that are published that include North Koreans as part of the publishing team. And so this drew roughly 1,300 articles that involved international partners, as well as roughly 1,400 that included domestic-only publications. And we kept our timeline from 1974 to 2018 and collected all the publications that we could find on such as radiation, isotopic separation, physics, chemistry, all of the different technologies necessary. So it was a very broad outlook. And then what we did was we looked at the different networks that were derived from these. So how are people partnering? What institutions are there to kind of serve as hubs of learning? What sort of technical expertise is the focus? Are they focusing on isotope enrichment in this phase, or are they focusing on mathematics and computer science in this phase? And so also, what countries are they engaged in, right? Are they working mainly with European countries, mainly with China, mainly domestically? How has this changed and shifted? And we looked at three different distinct periods. We looked at a pre-agreed framework period, so 1974 to 1994. We looked at this then up until the their first nuclear test in 2006, and then kind of 2007 to 2018 once they've had a fully robust program. And so what do these different stages like? Are they acquiring different technology? How has that changed? So we'll start with the international collaboration. And what we saw was that at the earliest stages of North Korea's nuclear program, there is a very little international collaboration, or very select countries that they engage with. And you can kind of see here on the left graphic, it's primarily with European countries, but with some Chinese organizations as well. So it's not a very robust collaborative network. So much of the network is focused in on turtle development, but there are a few connections between engineering and physics, so which suggests that North Korea is not at this point able to link teams doing research on related topics with the kind of engineering and physics core. So it's very, think about it, dispersed, still very much developing in this phase, with a focus more on European engagement rather than more domestic or Chinese engagement. This is very different in the post pre-agreement period in the run-up to the first nuclear test, where we see North Korea shift primarily towards post or communist bloc countries, specifically Chinese or excuse me, China, and then a few others such as Poland and other countries in Europe, but for the most part, only those old communist bloc countries. So here also, the topics North Korean researchers collaborated with international researchers changed substantially. So they'd start doing very repeated connections with Chinese researchers, particularly on physics and material science. So as these relationships start to get stronger, you start to develop more tacit knowledge, right? So I always think of tacit knowledge development, the example of if I write a paper with someone else, we both share in that tacit knowledge, right? We've both done that together. We both understand what's happening. If I do a paper with somebody that's, say, in South Korea, the tacit knowledge may not be as robustly transferred if I am not in South Korea as well, right? Because we're exchanging notes, we're not in the same space. And so what we see is a lot more engagement with North Korean scientists being co-located with Chinese scientists. So sharing not just having affiliations with North Korean institutions, but actually publishing out of Chinese organizations. And so this is the kind of a really dramatic shift in how they seek to acquire nuclear technology and develop their nuclear ecosystem. Shifts from, well, we're going to go out and just place people kind of where we want, to embedding individuals in organizations for a period of time and then bringing them back. And then finally, we have in 2007, a dramatic increase in publications coming out of North Korea, even controlling for the internet and whatnot. We still see a rapid development of these. And we can see that these technologies have shifted a bit. Most of the engagement is exclusively with China at this point, some German collaboration, and the technologies have also shifted. The technologies are much more diverse. You see a lot more engagements on things that you would not have seen earlier into in the program, such as mathematics, isotopes separation, computer science. The focus here is not just on or on topics that you need for once you've acquired a weapon to kind of ensure that you can run simulations on testing, that you can further out the way that you acquire nuclear materials. And so we see kind of a distinct effort to just acquire knowledge, but to diversify in areas that are needed. So much more working in dual use areas as well. So as the UN, the United States, and others start to put sanctions onto North Korea, you see a shift away from the physics and more into areas that could be considered dual use: chemistry, material science, and so forth. In terms of individual researchers and international connections, it was a very interesting finding. Was we looked at 61 North Korean researchers who started publishing domestically, but only 17 later published international journals. So what we could take away from all of the researchers that we looked at was that if individuals started publishing in North Korea, is that they were generally would stay in North Korea and not begin to publish external to North Korea. So what we see are younger individuals being sent abroad to acquire experience and technology and whatnot, and then brought back and integrated into the network. And then they don't go back out, right? So it's much more sending folks out, say maybe dissertation or whatnot, and then bringing them back. But there's no further exchange out. So it's a very only small number of individuals within North Korea's ecosystem that are able to kind of continue those relationships of international collaboration and bringing individuals and tacit knowledge back within North Korea. These technology or these individuals also focus more on dual use technology rather than on topics that would say raise red flags for the international community with regards to nuclear weapons. In terms of where are the key institutions, the Department of Energy Science, Kim Il-sung University, is the primary hub for knowledge and for organizing of international collaboration within North Korea. We could see in some of the previous graphs, if you scroll back, you can see in some of those organizations you can see are listed in the screen. We've highlighted the ones that are important for having hosting and collaborating with North Korea. Primarily, you'll see Kim Il-sung University as well as some other Chinese universities, but not a lot within North Korea in terms of within their nuclear sector doing this work. Additionally, research who shifted from domestic journals to international journals in collaboration with foreign researchers had a lower median time between domestic and international journal publication. So in terms of domestic network structure, I just have a few graphs here, keeping the same schedule of how arrangements, pre-agreed framework. Now this is focusing just on research being done within North Korea during this period. And you can see that it focuses primarily on nuclear research, generalized radiation research, isotope separation, chemistry, material science. These are the topics that are necessary at the outset of a program to start to develop the basis for, say, understanding the nuclear fuel cycle for extracting plutonium from spent fuel and so forth. So this is not uncharacteristics of all nuclear programs. Having looked at these networks across globally, across all countries that have proliferated, this is similar to all of their structures and should not raise red flags. And you can see that in kind of the focus of where the technology is on engineering, physics, plasma science, all understandably a focus for those countries that would want to seek out nuclear weapons. The second period, we can see a much greater collaboration domestically within radiation isotope separation and nuclear studies. I would say that this and no presence of technologies related to enrichment. So, and this kind of aligns with how how North Korea sought out its nuclear material. Is during this period we could see a dramatic shift into collaborations related to isotope separation and the technologies related to that field, right? In the final phase, we continue to see an expansion of these fields, and I would say that there's much greater collaboration within North Korean domestic networks than initially anticipated, or rather, that there are cross-topical discussions more than we've seen in other countries. That said, most of the networks related to kind of nuclear research are not robust like 20, 30 person teams. They're typically 2 to 3 authors on a paper. They typically have one person that is the foundation who kind of is the organization or the pivot point by which most of the research is done. And that's it. So there's not a big spirit of, hey, let's have everyone involved in the lab. It's more focus on 1 or 2 individuals publishing and the rest of the team, or if there is a team, not having their names on papers, not having that tacit knowledge kind of identified. So that is for those. These are just, again, just domestic. In terms of conclusions and implications in kind of the nuclear rated ecosystem, North Korea continues to be kind of a siloed research community. While there is some cross-pollination in research domains, most of the teams, like I said, are small. Individuals that do leave the country and are published generally don't publish as much when they return to North Korea. That said, there is a greater publication. There are more connections, so a greater tacit knowledge base is being created. the strategies used by North Korea to kind of establish these networks and to develop their tacit knowledge has shifted over time. And that is in response to kind of the sanctions that have been put in place and other efforts by the international community to start to attempt to stop their progress. They continue to obfuscate where possible the nature of North Korean involvement in in research. An example of this would be an individual that identified as a North Korean publishing as a Chinese affiliated author, but without providing North Korean affiliations, and also changing their name slightly to mask their identity. That is one strategy. They're also embedding the research more directly into relevant strategic topics of research collaboration and more in fields that are a bit more generalized. So the dual use fields, rather than focusing on, say, enrichment or plutonium extraction technologies. It's more material science as related. So I will go ahead and stop there. And I would like to thank you for your time.
Well, I mean, I think this is a pretty interesting findings from the academic and policy perspective, and I think it's so the evolution of North Korean nuclear science research and then development, it's pretty amazing. And then it's as far as I understand, North Korea actually tried to get a lot of technology transfer in the form of human exchange from the very beginning. But I think it was very interesting that those young scholars, from North Korea, to go to mainly in the People's Republic of China and get some knowledge, and then cutting edge technologies, and then going back to North Korea and then never come out.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. So
yeah, no,
I'm
for
asking.
other countries, yeah, you see an individual that will move to a country, do dissertation work or other research, come back to that country, publish there, and then do other move elsewhere, or be affiliated with organizations that are in other countries. Here we don't see this much, and North Korea attempted to kind of purchase other technology, other like schematics and other things, but really focused on Europe at the beginning of where they would acquire their knowledge through those international partnerships and whatnot. And after that period, after the agreed framework, those kind of dried up. They really focused in on, okay, we're going to build domestically our knowledge and then send out individuals to China on a much smaller, kind of more targeted basis.
Can you tell me, who are North Korean nuclear engineers and then scholars, and how do they work together? And then is it even possible, to?
Oh no, yeah, we have a list somewhere with this. I didn't put this in the slides. Happy to share with, but no, we
How
have
many of them?
lists. There's roughly, I would say, 400, I think, on our list, ranked and using network science, we're able to rank, who is the most important person in the network based on different metrics. So who serves as a bridge between different technologies, what maybe say those working on material science and those working on implosion physics, right? And who's the person working in between those groups? What was interesting with North Korea is they don't have those individuals. We see very much clusters of individuals that work in one technology, others work in other technologies, and where there is some overlap, they're there, but not like we see in other countries. They're very much siloed into their specific technologies. So you look at all the individuals, they're between this score is what is the measure, is very low because they're not connecting these dispersed groups.
I think it's in a sense, from the objective perspective, and it's pretty amazing, for these North Korean nuclear scientists and engineers to actually develop its own, nuclear weapon, which under the circumstances of, so-called, isolation, very limited or very low level of international exchange on the, nuclear science engineering. Yeah, I mean, recently, North Korea and Russia actually have pseudo alliance treaty, and then that was publicized widely, and then concerning many watchers of Korean Peninsula and North Korean nuclear politics. And I mean, based upon what you researched from this academic international and domestic epistemic community or
Mhm.
network on the nuclear technology and development. What kind of technologies does North Korea can the get from Russia counterpart? And then I think it's you have been working on this politics of technology of nuclear weapons. So there are many areas North Korea direly need
Mhm.
to get. I think it's Russia actually at least expressed the willingness to share the technology with North Korea. What are the primary the dimensions of this nuclear technology from Russia to North Korea?
Yeah, I would say so. It's really interesting how North Korea has developed its nuclear program over time. In that, Russia was one of the first to help it develop nuclear infrastructure back in the 50s and 60s. First to help develop that technology, but it kind of took a step back, and China then stepped in. And then as China or as North Korea kind of moved forward with its nuclear program, China really was seen as distancing itself from North Korea a bit in many regards. However, not on the technology exchange, which is
Mm,
interesting, right? You don't see a drop off in individuals co-publishing with those in China, and so that's kind of an interesting, like, okay, yeah, we're gonna push back a little bit on North Korea from a political side, but not on the technology side.
mm,
And I think in
mm,
terms of kind of technology exchange with Russia moving forward, we're seeing a lot with regards
mm,
to North Korean sale of technology to Russia for its war in Ukraine.
mm,
But we're not seeing as much in collaboration on the science side. If there was going to be more of that, I would say it's probably going to be on the safe handling, building
mm,
in what's called
mm,
PALS systems,
mm,
so passive controls for their nuclear weapons. That's something that we've worked with other countries. The United States, the United States has worked with other countries that have sought out nuclear weapons.
That's right.
Is okay. Yeah, you have their weapons. We acknowledge that, but we are going
Mm,
to help you integrate PALS systems in them so that they become more secure
mm,
in them. So that's something that I believe there's the not classified information. Believe the U.S. did that with Pakistan in
mm.
the 2000s.
I think it's a you explained about this evolution or formation of the nuclear science R&D ecosystem in North Korea.
Mhm.
Do you think it will be sustainable for foreseeable future?
Yeah, as an authoritative government, it's very interesting to see that they even got this far. We look at, say, the case of Iran. Iran was much slower than North Korea in its development.
Mm,
Its scientists were even more siloed than North Koreans, and the progress has been slower, right? They've not built out the robust ecosystem. So if from a political perspective, if we start to see accidents, we start to see
mm,
mishaps or
mm,
a lack of development, perhaps that class loses ground a bit. If they do, that's the loss of tacit knowledge. It'll take years to redevelop. I mean, the nuclear program for North Korea took almost 40 years,
mm,
and so building up that tacit knowledge again
mm,
would slow further development, further improvements, and what you worry about now is they've figured out how to enrich, they figured out how to extract plutonium, how to build the bomb. What we need now is to have safe, secure weapon
mm,
systems.
mm, mm,
If you start to remove that tacit knowledge, that becomes more accident prone, right? That's one of the
mm,
big
mm,
concerns is accidental launch,
mm.
mishaps, those sorts of things.
Okay, thank you so much.
No
And then
problem.
yeah, it was pretty intriguing, talk at the same time, the Q&A and the discussion session with you, Professor Philip Baxter. Thank you so much one more time.
Excellent. Thank you so much.